This message comes from Capital One. Your business faces unique challenges and opportunities. That's why Capital One offers a comprehensive suite of financial services backed by the strength of a top 10 commercial bank. Visit CapitalOne.com/commercial. Member FDIC.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. This week, we're connecting the dots between coconuts, frogs, and presidents. I know. How are all these things connected? Well, we're going to find out with Tatum Hunter, consumer tech reporter at The Washington Post, and Kyle Chayka, staff writer at The New Yorker. Tatum, Kyle, welcome to It's Been a Minute.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Okay, so with everything going on this year, have you been posting through it?
I've been posting a lot, unfortunately. I think my most infamous post personally so far has been complaining that my farmer's market trip was disrupted by the news that Joe Biden was dropping out.
I have been posting through it on The Close Friends, which is a small collection of the girlies, other writers, and people I have a crush on, sometimes all three.
You're low-key posting through it.
I'm low-key posting through it.
It's good to be honest here. This is a circle of trust. Just us and the thousands and thousands of people who are listening right now. But, I mean, memes have been a big talking point in the presidential race these last few weeks. There's coconuts, a couch, the Charli XCX album Brat, which my 68-year-old mom is now trying to listen to. And I want to get into the political power of memes in this moment. But before we get into deep, dark, thoughtful depths, what has been the most memorable meme that you've seen of the last few weeks?
I saw a meme when I was reporting a story on reactions to the Trump assassination attempt online. And it was an image of him, holding his injured ear. And it said, "Do not get your ears pierced at Claire's."
There were some TikToks that were kind of shipping that is describing a fictional relationship between Trump and Biden set to the Chappell Roan song Casual.
It's casual, if it's casual now, then baby, give me all.
Yeah, it was definitely something to see. That was definitely something to see. I feel like the memes have been flying. Something I want to touch on is that it seems like the Harris campaign is embracing posting through it. Like, they made their X header a play on the Charli XCX Brat album cover, and they referenced the coconut tree meme in their profile's bio. How have the viral online posts helped introduce Vice President Harris as a presidential candidate?
I feel like they've given her more of a personality or a public personality than she had before. I think reporting has shown that not that many Americans don't have a good idea of who she is, what she talks like, what her personality is. And these memes have kind of given a framework to that and given some kind of even just a visual reference point to who Kamala is, how she dances, for example, the kinds of language she uses.
And I think at the same time, it's hard to say whether we're making these memes somehow based on Kamala's personality, which I think is less the case than we're kind of retrofitting our public image of Kamala to the existing cultural moment. Like, we love Chappell Roan. We love Brat. Kamala is Brat, and she's a Kamala nomenon. So I think it's less of her forging her own path and more of just taking her and putting her into the zeitgeist.
To that point that you just brought up, Tatum, is she kind of making a moment, or is she just meeting the moment?
I would say that she's meeting the moment, and now she's showing up on TikTok under, her own name saying, "I heard I was on the For You page." And as we've learned with past campaigns like Bernie Sanders, it's a dangerous game to acknowledge the memery because, it thrives on irony, on taking something earnest and then spinning it. So when you try to engage with it, it's very tricky.
Yeah, it seems like a potential quagmire for the candidate and their campaign. Something else I noticed is that there seems to be a blurring between, the absurdist or satirical, sarcastic, ironic posts and also those that are sincere. And so I wonder, does the intent really matter?
I feel like it doesn't, or it's more in the mind of the consumer than it is in the creator, because particularly on TikTok, the creator does not really have control of where their video is distributed. Like the algorithmic feed will send it to whoever might be vaguely interested, and it doesn't stay within the context of a political group
Sorry.
or some specific audience. So it just gets blasted out and people take it as sincere or as insincere. I feel like a lot of them are probably just like, oh, Kamala's a new meme. It would be funny to make a fan cam edit of her. I'm going to do that. And that video will probably get a lot of promotion.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Kyle and Tatum get into what most people get wrong about Gen Z humor and how the joke might be on us. And later, we play a game.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Saatva, maker of quality, handcrafted mattresses. Founder and CEO Ron Rutson shares one of their core values.
At Saatva, we believe sleep does unlock a superpower. When you wake up and you're totally refreshed, you go after things more. And it all starts with being on the right mattress. And that's what Saatva has been inspired by from the day that we started.
To learn more, go to SAATVA.com/NPR.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from the Southern Environmental Law Center, the South's largest environmental advocate and protector. SELC is dedicated to tackling the toughest environmental challenges by protecting our air, water, land, wildlife, and the people that live there. Learn more at southernenvironment.org.
This message comes from Capital One, offering commercial solutions you can bank on. Now more than ever, your business faces unique challenges and opportunities. That's why Capital One offers a comprehensive suite of financial services, all tailored to your short and long-term goals. Backed by the strength and stability of a top 10 commercial bank, their dedicated experts work with you to build lasting success. Explore the possibilities at CapitalOne.com/commercial, a member FDIC.
As you mentioned, Kyle, we're seeing some really wild memes getting put together where the creators are just taking whatever is popular right now or whatever people seem to respond to and smashing it together. Like that meme that you mentioned earlier, Kyle, where, you know, they mashed Chappell Roan's song with a video of Trump and Biden, making it look like they were romantically involved. I mean, these are three very hot SEO topics, you know?
Yeah.
Kyle, what are people getting wrong about this kind of like meme particle acceleration?
Perhaps that anyone in particular has a grasp on it. So it almost feels like the candidates, the politics, the news are subordinate to the mechanics of the platform. To me, the acceleration and the promotion and the attention is its own message. Mm-hmm. And it's just whoever gets the most attention is the winner at a given moment.
I also think it's risky to try to iron it into a narrative because the internet is so big with so many different niche communities. So like Kyle was saying, it's very tough to tease out what any of this means. And also, the harder you try to analyze something that's absurdist, the more the joke is on you.
It also seems like in the past, conservatives were maybe more known for their memes, like Pepe the Frog, if you recall. As another guest recently remarked on this show, conservatives are kind of more correlated with fun and humor, like unfettered fun and humor on the internet as opposed to arch humor, whereas liberals might be more dour or sincere.
I think also Donald Trump's digital media strategy has been so superior to Joe Biden's, for example. I think you chose a good word, dour, for how liberal Democrats, traditional liberal Democrats, are perceived in internet culture, because I think it's very much the millennial thing of this kind of earnest posting, engaging very earnestly with politics online. And I think younger folks, that doesn't really resonate with them as much, and in fact, it alienates them.
Tatum, you're touching on the impact of the younger generation, a new young generation of voters. I mean, you've reported on how Gen Z specifically is posting through it all. Around 41 million members of Gen Z will be eligible to vote this year. How are their memes and reactions and humor indicative of their read on the election?
I think we need to be careful not to say that, this reaction to Kamala's candidacy will kind of carry over into the next phase of her election campaign. Because, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the first, attempted assassination of a sitting or former president with a gun in decades and decades. We're kind of done with it now on social media feeds. So no matter how engaged people are right now with Vice President Harris, it doesn't necessarily mean that next week something else wouldn't have grabbed the internet's attention. But also, I think some of this absurdist content really speaks to how discouraged young people are with having two candidates that don't represent their politics, especially about climate change and the war in Gaza in many cases.
Memes travel at a completely different speed than the news. News organizations were notably slower to confirm what happened after Trump's assassination attempt than social media posters, which is good because the journalists were fact-checking and making sure that they weren't spreading disinformation. But Charlie Warzel at The Atlantic points out that that also fed in its own way into the conspiracy theories that we saw online. What does it mean that the media, by necessity, is always going to be slower than the online information machine?
I think the vetting is more important than the speed in a lot of ways. And to make content that moves at the speed of the internet is to sacrifice the truth often and accuracy and meaning. So in this case, these events have been so significant and so era defining that I think to make memes about them first has almost denigrated them in a lot of ways, or has prevented us from making more sense of them. I mean, being on Twitter or X at the moment of the Trump shooting attempt, there was no waiting for information.
Yes.
I did see a good meme about this, actually, which is a sign, possibly in SpongeBob font, I'm not sure, but it just said, the numbers crossed out and it says 0 days since a major historical event has happened. And I think it was the day that Biden exited his own campaign.
Gosh.
It speaks to the sheer speed and volume of these events that are the events themselves are happening too fast for us to process them. And thus one defense mechanism or reaction is just to kind of leave it in the dust. Like there were posts about how Trump's shooting attempt would not matter in 2 weeks. And in a way, the news cycle, which is so fast now, has moved on and everyone is just debating Kamala. Recently, I think after the peak of the Kamala memes, J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential candidate, came in for his time in the viral spotlight and a lot of memes were being made about him.
Ultimately, what does it mean that a lot of us are just posting through it all now? Can we actually metabolize everything that's happening?
I am no psychologist, but I'm going to say no. I don't think we're capable of processing information at the speed and volume that we're getting it.
I feel like the fragmentation of the news ecosystem has also really impacted this. Like we've had 2 to 3 major events that have occurred on like alternating sides of the political spectrum, and the different sides understand them completely differently. So it feels a bit like there's no space in which to have that dialogue. What we're doing instead is just like throwing rocks back and forth or hitting the volleyball back and forth over a net. That's a complete dividing barrier between people.
Well, I mean, for myself, I don't know if I could say how healthy or effective posting through it all is, although I'm definitely continuing to do it. Tatum, Kyle, I have learned so much here. Thank you both so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
And as a thank you, I'd like to teach you something by playing a game with you both. Can you stick around for a tiny bit longer?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, we'll be right back with a little game I like to call, But Did You Know? Stick around.
This message comes from NPR sponsor REI Co-op. For the next half minute, REI wants to remind you that you can't make more time, but you can make the most of it by calling timeout. Timeout on the algorithms, comfort zones, and life on autopilot. REI believes that getting outside is the best way to get out of our routines and instead find new routes. When you're ready, they have the gear, clothing, classes, and advice to get you started. Visit your local REI co-op or rei.com/opt-outside. This message comes from Progressive Insurance. You call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. Now you can call them on your auto insurance too with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. Tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options within your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. This message comes from Progressive and its Name Your Price tool. Say how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show coverage options within your budget. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Amazon Business. Everyone could use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
All right. We're going to play a little game I like to call, But Did You Know? Here's how it works. I'm going to share a story that's been making headlines this week and give you some background on that story. I'll also ask you trivia related to it, but don't worry, it's all multiple choice. So the correct answer is in there somewhere, and the first one to blurt out the right answer gets a point. Person with the most points wins, and their prize is bragging rights. Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
Yes, I love to hear it. Okay, first question. There have been some big blockbuster movies this summer, so I will be asking you some trivia about them. So, to start, the number one movie at the box office last weekend was Deadpool and Wolverine, which, fun fact, one of the first things Deadpool says in the movie is, "Marvel's so stupid." But what else can we learn from the box office faves? The number 4 movie last weekend was Inside Out 2. And my question for you is, which emotion was almost part of this franchise? Is it A, Schadenfreude, which is pleasure due to someone else's misfortune? B, solipsism, which is self-centeredness? Or C, anhedonia, which is the absence of pleasure in something you used to like?
I feel like B.
I'm going to say C.
Unfortunately, you were both wrong.
Oh, no.
The answer is A, Schadenfreude. They were going to add Schadenfreude to the crew with a German accent, of course, but it was cut for simplicity's sake. I also could see that being like a difficult emotion for children to name. So maybe that was for the best.
Too abstract.
Too abstract. All right. Next question. The number 3 movie at the box office, as of this taping, is Despicable Me 4. According to the lore of the Despicable Me franchise, which also encompasses the Minions universe, at what point in time were the Minions created? Was it A, when Gru invented them in 1968? B, when Dracula created them sometime in the 1700s? Or C, they evolved out of the sea, fully formed before the dawn of time?
I think it's C.
Yeah, given what I know about them.
Kyle says C. Tatum says C. Well, fortunately for you, Kyle, you were first with the correct answer. The answer is C. According to the Minions movie, they are immortal beings that are at least 60 million years old and have served evil T-Rexes and ancient Egyptians in the meantime. Would either of you go for immortality if it meant that you also had to be a minion forever?
No.
Tatum, you seem conflicted.
Well, I don't think I'd go for immortality even if I got to be myself.
It just seems stressful.
The minion form, I think, that seems tough. And you also are like a servant to evil people, right?
Yeah. All right. So to recap the score, Tatum, you are at 0 points. Kyle, you are at 1 point. So without further ado, the final question. The number 2 movie at the box office last weekend was Twisters. But in real life, roughly what percentage of the world's tornadoes happen in the United States? Is it A, 25%, B, 50%, or C, 75%?
A.
I'm going to say C.
Kyle says C, and Kyle, you're absolutely right. The answer is C, 75%.
I heard this on Morning Edition or something. Thank you, NPR.
Okay, we love a home station listener. Isn't that wild? Tornadoes aren't uniquely American, but they're pretty freaking American. I didn't even realize that until we were getting ready to play this game. 75%. All right, well, that's it for But Did You Know for this week. Congratulations to Kyle on your win.
It's that NPR listening. You gotta do it.
It paid off. It finally paid off. Tatum, you know, if we all keep posting through it, you might both have to come back and duke it out again.
Okay, good. Well, Kyle, this isn't over.
All right. Well, Tatum, Kyle, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's always fun to talk about memes.
That was the Washington Post's Tatum Hunter and the New Yorker's Kyle Chayka. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
This episode was edited by
Jessica Placzek.
Engineering support came from
Robert Rodriguez.
Our executive producer is
Veralyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Capella University. Capella's programs teach skills relevant to your career so you can apply what you learn right away. See how Capella can make a difference in your life at capella.edu. This message comes from NPR sponsor Shopify, the global commerce platform that helps you sell and show up exactly the way you want to. Customize your online store to your style. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/NPR.